Hi everyone, so today I am doing my July reading wrap up, and overall July was an okay month. I read 7 books in the month of July, and I feel like most of them were okay or I did not like them at all. So, and one of them I straight up hated, and that's actually gonna be the first book I'm gonna talk about. So the first book I read in July was Plausible Liars by Lynn Wilder. This book just made me so angry. So, okay. I read this in order to meet one of my reading prompts, my 2026 Pop Sugar reading prompts, in which the prompt was to read a book in which a male and a female have a platonic friendship. And usually if I don't have something in mind, I'll go to Goodreads and like look at because there's like a Pop Sugar group and they usually have like books listed that meet each of the prompts. So I went there and I usually pick the first book on that list, and I've never had any problems with this. Have I read books that way that I don't like? Yeah, but have I read books that I absolutely despise and disagree with every fiber of my being? No. So I am very surprised that this was the #1 book on that list, because, and I didn't do any research into it. As I said, I've never been led astray by the books on these lists, so I didn't do any research into it. I bought it. I totally regret buying it because it was so anti-trans, very anti-trans was the first thing. It was poorly written, first of all, like ignoring the anti-trans of it all. It was poorly written. One of the characters has autism, and you can think of her as like the magical autistic character because she was just there to be magically autistic, and just like autism is on a spectrum. I'm aware of that. There's no one way to be autistic, but the way this character's written is definitely not it. It just so there's that. And then yes, this book was nothing but anti-trans right-wing propaganda. And if it had been at least written well, it's like I can disagree with the book at the end of the day and tell everyone not to read it, and I would never ever recommend this book ever. But if it's well written, at least it's like I can understand the arguments you're trying to make as opposed to just this. And it was so funny because there's so many moments in the book in which it was like, oh, our country has become so divided because of issues like this. And it's like, books like this is what continues dividing this country. What are you talking about? And then there was like a line. So the characters start off in California and then they eventually move to Texas because, Texas fits their ideology a lot more than California does. And they make a joke about how like, oh, I guess we should move back to the oh my gosh, I don't even remember how they phrased it, but it was like, they didn't use this word because this is not the correct word, but I'm blanking out. But they're like, well, I guess let's just move back to good old xenophobic Texas. And again, it's written as like it's meant to be a joke, but it's like, this is not a joke. And it's a very badly written one as well. And you're proud of the fact that you're xenophobic? Like, why are you proud of this? Like, why are you so proud? Okay, I think that's all I'm gonna say. And then, well, okay, no, that's not all I'm gonna say. So this is written by someone who is Catholic. I'm Catholic. Yes, continuing to call birth control pills, abortifacients. Birth control pills do not cause you to abort your child. They are there. It's literally in the name, birth control. It is there to prevent pregnancy. It is not there to abort your child. Are there people who accidentally get pregnant on the pill and the pill maybe causes them to have a miscarriage? Sure, but that is very, very rare for that to happen. And there's a lot of people who get pregnant while on the pill and find out that they're pregnant and their child is able to gestate just fine and be born 9 months later just fine. So this is a very rare occurrence. That is not its primary goal. The primary goal is to prevent pregnancy. And I have a huge issue with the title. So the meaning of plausible liars, as it's later explained in the book, there's a scripture in which you're told to watch out for plausible liars that are going to take you away from the faith. And trans people in this instance are those plausible liars that are causing people to turn from the faith. Trans people just want to live. The majority of trans people could not care less what religion you are. They just want to be left alone. If you leave them alone, they're perfectly happy with you continuing to worship Christianity, your Christian God, your whatever God, and they're not there to try to take you away from him. The plausible liars are people like certain politicians that are being worshipped as being equal to Jesus. That's more of a plausible liar because you're worshiping someone who is not God. And I'm going to stop there. But so clearly I rated this book 1 star on Goodreads, 0 stars on the Storygraph. I'm so glad I was able to rate this 0 stars on Storygraph. Do not read this book. Okay. You know what? I've spent 7 minutes just talking about this book, and I still have 6 more books to talk about, so let's move on. Next is Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna Van Veen. I have a very short video reviewing it. It's very hard to talk about this book without spoiling it, so that's why it's a very short review. So I'm not going to spend much time talking about it other than to say that I absolutely loved it, and I rated it 4 stars, and I think out of all the books that I read that month, that was my favorite. Third is The Help by Kathryn Stockett. I also have a full review of that book on my channel if you are interested in checking it out, and that one is a full review with spoilers and everything. Overall, my issues was just the way the Black characters were written. I don't think they were written. The author tried her hardest, but it was accidentally offensive in a lot of ways. So I think the author was genuinely coming from a good place. She just ended up falling into unintentionally racist tropes. And I'm using unintentionally just because, like I said, I don't think this was the author's intention, but it was still offensive. There's issues with it. You can check out my full review, as I said. This one was just okay overall, so I rated it 3 stars. Next up is Circe by Madeline Miller. I really liked this book. It made me really excited to explore Greek mythology again. There was so many instances that I knew that were being referenced in the book, and then there were other moments that were like ringing a bell, but it's been so long since I've studied Greek mythology that I didn't remember everything. So this made me excited to look into Greek mythology again, and I really hope to do that. I think the book's biggest downfall, absolutely loved it. I loved reading Circe, and I love reading about her and her journey, and just seeing her embrace her rage and her power, and just seeing like an imperfect character allowed to be imperfect. And she was not unlikable. Like, she was just an imperfect character, but you still found reasons to root for her and cheer for her. So I really enjoyed that. I think the book's biggest flaw is that it's very beautifully written, very sweeping and poetic and majestic, and I feel like that was its downfall at times, because I would get so caught up in like the beauty of the language that I would get distracted by that and kind of lose focus or sense of what I was reading. So I would have to go back and reread what I just read, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I got to enjoy the lines twice, but yeah, so not a bad thing. Definitely not saying that's a bad thing, but I think that like it was a little, it just became a little too easy to get lost in it as opposed to be fully immersed in it, if that makes sense. But I still really, really enjoyed it, and I rated it 4 stars. The next book I read is Demystifying Disability: What to Know, What to Say, and How to Be an Ally by Emily Ladau. And this one I read in honor of Disability Pride Month, and it's exactly what it says. It's a very short nonfiction book that talks about very, 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 very brief overview on disability, and then just how you can be an ally to people with disabilities, and how you can change your language to be more inclusive. So very easy to read, very informative. If you're interested in becoming a better ally to the disability community, then I guess it makes more sense to say disabled community. Whatever, that's not the point. You can check out this book. I also gave it 4 stars because I thought it was very helpful. The next book I read is The Book of Records by Madeline Thien, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. This one I was not a fan of, unfortunately. I rated it 2 stars, and it's very philosophical, very brainy. I think they're philosophers, like well-known philosophers. I know next to nothing about philosophy. So I think they're 3 well-known philosophers, and their stories are kind of intertwined with the main character and her father's story. I was not the right person for this book because like I said, I don't know much about philosophy. Philosophy is not necessarily a subject I'm interested in learning more about. It's beautifully written, but just for me, this was not the book for me. I just didn't find it very interesting. I found myself kind of struggling with the 4 intertwining stories and how they all connected, and how the stories of the philosopher tied in with the stories of the main character and her father. So this is just not the book for me. It's a book for someone, but it wasn't the book for me. And the last book I read is Hateless by Jennifer Brown, and I actually have a copy of this. I just got back from Texas, and this was on my Texas bookshelf. So I had been reading this for a while. It'd been on my TBR for a while. This is like a relatively old book, YA book. I believe this came out all the way back in 2008, so 2009. So it's been a while. So it's kind of old, but unfortunately still very, very relevant. It follows the story of Valerie, and she and her boyfriend wrote a hate list. She thought that it was just a way for them to cope with the bullying that they were experiencing, but Nick actually acts on the hate list and shoots up his high school, and the hate list, the people on the hate list were his targets. So it deals with the aftermath of the shooting, Valerie's guilt in knowing she assisted in writing the hate list, but knowing that she never had any intention of doing anything to the people on the hate list. So I thought it was well written. It is very, very much a YA book. So that's not a bad thing necessarily, but just something to keep in mind. And so, you know, there's a lot of teen angst and anger, but I think it fits the character and I think it makes sense. And one of the worst fathers you will ever read about. I hated this dad. But I also rated this 4 stars. I guess, I don't know what, it felt like it was just an okay month, but like talking about it, there was really only 3 books, 3 out of the 4 that were like, one was a straight up hate, one I didn't like, and then one was just okay, and the other 4 I liked a lot. So I don't know, I said it was okay. Maybe I was just so bogged down thinking about the ones that were just okay / hated. But that is it. Let me know what you read this month or last month. And if you've read any of the books, let me know what you thought of them. Bye.